Everyone wants greatness, but almost no one is willing to pay the price. Behind every shining crown lies a story of pain, sacrifice, and struggle. Mandela lost 27 years in a prison cell. Lincoln was hated in his time. Elon Musk was weeks away from bankruptcy. Greatness is never free. It always demands a price. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Greatness. A word that sounds glamorous, powerful, and admired. People see the spotlight, the fame, the recognition, and the applause. They see leaders standing on the stage, celebrated by millions, praised by history, and remembered for generations. But what they don't see is the cost. Because greatness is never free. Every true leader, every visionary, every man or woman who shaped history paid a price so heavy that most of us would never dare to carry it. The truth is, behind every speech, every victory, and every moment of glory, there are nights of pain, years of sacrifice, and wounds that never heal. When we look at leaders like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison for the dream of a free South Africa, or Ibrahim Traoré, who risked his own life to stand against global powers for the dignity of his people, or even Elon Musk, who gambled his entire fortune, risking bankruptcy and ridicule just to chase an impossible vision, one truth becomes clear. Greatness demands a sacrifice that ordinary people will never understand. But let's pause for a second. Have you ever asked yourself, why is it that the people we admire the most are also the ones who suffered the most? Why is pain such a consistent part of leadership? The answer is simple. Because true leadership is not about enjoying comfort. It's about carrying burdens that no one else can. Leaders stand where others run away. They choose the harder path, knowing very well that it might destroy them, but also knowing that without it nothing great will ever be built. Take Ibrahim Traoré, for example. At just 34 years old, he rose to power in Burkina Faso, not because he wanted fame, not because he wanted luxury, but because his country was bleeding. Surrounded by foreign exploitation, terrorism, and poverty, he made a choice to confront the strongest forces in the world, even if it meant putting his own life at risk. Do you think that was easy? Imagine being in his place, knowing that every word you speak, every action you take, is being watched by enemies far stronger than you. Knowing that one mistake could end your life, that is the price of greatness. Now look at Elon Musk. People see the billionaire, the cars, the rockets, the futuristic vision. But do they see the man who once slept on the factory floor because his company couldn't afford to fail? Do they see the man who invested every last dollar into Tesla and SpaceX? So much so that he couldn't even afford rent. That is the side of greatness that the world ignores. Sacrifice, pain, isolation, and the willingness to lose everything just to hold on to a dream that no one else believes in. But let's step even further back. History is filled with examples. Martin Luther King Jr. knew that fighting for civil rights meant putting his life on the line, and yet he did it anyway. Gandhi chose to give up comfort and live a life of simplicity, walking miles and enduring prison, because he believed India deserved freedom. Every single leader who ever changed the world had to give up something precious, whether it was freedom, wealth, family, health, or even life itself. The question is, why? Why would anyone make that sacrifice? The answer lies in one word: vision. Ordinary people live for themselves, but great leaders live for something bigger. They see a future that does not exist yet, and they dedicate their lives to building it, no matter the cost. That is why they are remembered. That is why their names echo through time. But here's the part that most people don't want to hear. If you truly want to achieve greatness in your own life, you must be willing to sacrifice too. Maybe not prison, maybe not your life, but certainly your comfort. Because success is never given. It is earned with sleepless nights, endless failures, and the courage to stand when the world wants you to fall. The truth is, every dream has a price tag. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Think about it. Do you want financial freedom? Then you must sacrifice your time, your distractions, your laziness. Do you want to build a business? Then you must sacrifice stability, comfort, and sometimes even relationships. Do you want to leave a legacy? Then you must sacrifice living just for yourself and start living for a purpose greater than your own survival. When you look at someone like Ibrahim Traoré, you see a man who could have lived quietly, safely, anonymously, but instead, he chose fire. He chose the battlefield of politics, the danger of speaking truth against power, the loneliness of leadership. Why? Because he decided that the suffering of his people was more important than his own comfort. That is leadership. Not titles, not money, not status, but sacrifice. And when you look at Elon Musk, you see someone who could have retired after PayPal with hundreds of millions of dollars, living a life of luxury forever. But he didn't. Instead, he pushed further, risking everything to pursue goals that everyone said were impossible. He sacrificed his peace, his time, and sometimes even his sanity. That is the price of greatness. The irony of leadership is this. The world celebrates the rewards but ignores the costs. People want the crown but not the weight it carries. They want the spotlight but not the shadows behind it. But there is no greatness without sacrifice. There is no legacy without loss. There is no success without struggle. So maybe today you are struggling in silence. Maybe you are giving your best working late nights, failing again and again, and wondering if it's worth it. Let me tell you it is. Because sacrifice is the seed of greatness. The more you give, the more you grow. The more you endure, the more you become. And one day when you look back, you will realize that everything you lost was nothing compared to what you gained. Greatness is not measured by what you achieve. It is measured by what you give up to achieve it. Greatness, it shines like a diamond in the eyes of the world. Everyone admires it, everyone desires it, but almost no one is willing to pay the price it demands. People look at leaders, entrepreneurs, and revolutionaries and think how lucky they are, how powerful, how respected, but what people do not see is the weight behind the crown, the sleepless nights, the betrayal, the suffering, the loneliness. Every person who has ever risen to greatness has walked through a fire that burned everything unnecessary from their lives, leaving only purpose behind. Behind every story of greatness is a story of sacrifice. And this is the part of the story no one talks about. The pain, the struggle, the losses, the invisible price that turns ordinary men and women into extraordinary figures. Think of Nelson Mandela. The world celebrates him as the father of freedom in South Africa, but who remembers the 27 years he spent in a prison cell? 27 years. Imagine that. Decades of his life taken away. He missed his children growing up, missed time with his family, lived behind bars while the world outside moved forward. That is a price almost no one would be willing to pay. And yet he did, because he had a vision greater than his own comfort. Or think of Abraham Lincoln. People remember the speeches, the Emancipation Proclamation, the victory in the Civil War. But few remember how despised he was in his time, how he carried the unbearable weight of a divided nation, how he was called a fool, a tyrant, and even faced threats to his life every single day. And in the end he paid the ultimate price when he was assassinated. But history remembers him not for how he died, but for what he gave. And then there is Ibrahim Traoré, the young president of Burkina Faso, just 34 years old, yet standing like a giant in the face of global powers. Most men his age are thinking about careers, families, comfort, maybe travel, or building personal wealth. But he chose something else. He chose to step into fire. He chose to stand for a people exploited, for a country abandoned, for a dignity denied. Every speech he makes puts him at risk. Every decision he takes could cost him his life. And yet he keeps moving forward. Because greatness does not wait for safety. Greatness demands courage. Now let's turn to a different battlefield. The world of technology. Elon Musk. To many he is the richest man in the world. A symbol of futuristic ambition. But do you know the other side of the story? There was a time when Musk was on the brink of total failure. He had sold PayPal and made millions. Yes. But instead of living in luxury, he invested almost all of it into SpaceX and Tesla. Both companies were bleeding money. Rockets exploded. Cars faced recalls. Investors pulled out. Journalists laughed at him. He was weeks away from bankruptcy. He had to borrow money just to pay his rent. That is the price he paid. People don't see the man who slept on the factory floor, who worked 120 hours a week, who sacrificed his personal life. They only see the billionaire today. But the billionaire was built on the ashes of sacrifice. The truth is this. Greatness is never an accident. It is always purchased. With pain. With patience. With persistence. Think about Martin Luther King Jr. The man who inspired millions with his dream of equality. He knew very well that his fight would likely cost him his life. And yet he continued. Every speech he gave carried the shadow of death. And eventually he was killed. But he lives on because he was willing to pay the price. Or Gandhi. He could have lived in wealth and comfort as a lawyer, but he chose instead to live simply, to walk among the poorest, to endure beatings, prison, and hunger. Why? Because freedom was worth more than his personal comfort. History repeats this lesson over and over. Joan of Arc burned at the stake at 19, but remembered forever as a symbol of courage. Malcolm X, who faced threats every day until his assassination, yet became a voice that still inspires. Leaders from every corner of the world, all carrying the same truth: greatness demands sacrifice. And here's the part you must understand. This is not just about famous leaders or world-changing figures. This is about you, about me, about everyone who carries a dream in their heart. Because no dream comes free. Do you want success in your career? You will have to sacrifice comfort, late nights, weekends, distractions. Do you want financial freedom? You will have to sacrifice temporary pleasures, excuses, and laziness. Do you want to build something that lasts, a business, a legacy, an impact? Then you must sacrifice stability, security, and sometimes even the approval of the people around you. The reason most people never achieve greatness is not because they are not talented, not because they are not intelligent, but because they are not willing to sacrifice. They want results without paying the price. They want the crown without carrying the cross. But that is not how greatness works. You see, sacrifice is a test. It separates the dreamers from the doers, the talkers from the builders. When you are forced to give something up, sleep, money, time, comfort, that is the universe asking, how much do you really want this? And only those who keep going, only those who choose vision over comfort, make it through. Let me tell you a story. When Thomas Edison was inventing the light bulb, he failed thousands of times. Thousands. People laughed at him. Investors doubted him. He could have quit, gone home and lived comfortably. But he sacrificed years of his life because he believed the world needed light. And he gave it to us. Another story, Michael Jordan, perhaps the greatest basketball player of all time. People remember the championships, the glory, the fame, but they forget the countless hours in the gym, the games he played while sick, the failures he endured before success. He once said, "I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that is why I succeed. That is the price." So let me ask you this. What is your dream worth to you? What are you willing to sacrifice? Because if you want greatness, you cannot keep everything. You will have to give something up. The question is, will you? Greatness is lonely. It is painful. It is heavy. And yet it is beautiful. Because while the world sleeps, you are building. While others complain, you are working. While others give up, you keep going. And that is what makes you different. When history looks back, it does not remember those who played it safe. It remembers those who risked it all. Those who sacrificed. Those who gave their lives to something bigger than themselves. And maybe today you are tired. Maybe you feel like your sacrifice is too much. Maybe you wonder if it's worth it. Let me tell you, it is. Every step you take, every comfort you give up, every hour you spend on your dream, it is building you into something greater. Greatness is not measured by what you achieve. It is measured by what you give up to achieve it. So the next time you see a leader, a visionary, a revolutionary, do not envy their success. Respect their sacrifice. Because behind every shining crown is a head that carried unbearable weight. Behind every victory is a battlefield of scars. Behind every legacy is a life that was willing to give everything. And the same choice is before you. Will you live for comfort, or will you pay the price of greatness? Because remember this, the world does not remember the comfort. It remembers the courageous. Greatness is calling. The question is, will you answer?